Hello everyone, my name is Max Metzel. In this presentation, I'll be examining why Mediplus's change initiative has stalled out and what's preventing the organization from moving forward. I'll be using Beer's rational model over dissatisfaction, model, process, and resistance to diagnose the core issues that have been affecting the organization's growth over the past several years. After reviewing the diagnosis, I'll highlight the most significant problem areas and then represent 3 recommendations to help resolve the issues. The goal is to give Mr. Segal, Mediplus's CEO, a clear practical path for restarting the change effort and reducing the resistance that's currently holding the organization back. Before we get into the model and the diagnosis, I need to shed some light on what's happening at Mediplus. While the company has grown vastly over the past 30 years, their leadership team hasn't grown together at the same rate. There's a lot of confusion about the direction the organization is facing, compounded by the financial uneasiness from the changing policies with the Affordable Care Act, and other companies changing their policies for a more aggressive model. The CEO tends to avoid conflict, which leaves major disagreements unresolved. Because of that, employees aren't sure what the priorities are. Communication feels inconsistent, and decisions take way too long to make. The change initiative they're trying to push forward is basically stuck. Not because people hate change, though, but because they don't understand where the company is going or how leadership expects them to get there. Mediplus needs clarity, urgency, and a leadership team that's aligned and willing to address conflict. And that's the context for why Beer's model is useful here and how we'll walk through the diagnosis. For the diagnosis, I want to briefly introduce the framework I'm using to evaluate Mediplus. Beer's model is built around 4 elements that must work together for any major change to succeed. The first element is dissatisfaction. People need to feel that the current situation isn't acceptable and that staying put is riskier than moving forward. Without that sense of urgency, change doesn't get traction. The second element is the model. This is the clear, shared picture of where the organization is going and how it plans to get there. It's the strategy, the priorities, and the alignment at the leadership level that gives everyone direction. The third element is the process. This is the structure, communication, and sequence of steps that guide how the change is implemented. Even a strong strategy will stall if the process is unclear or inconsistent. And finally, the fourth element is resistance. Every organization has it, it's completely normal. What matters is whether leadership understands where the resistance is coming from and addresses it directly instead of avoiding it. The first 3 elements must be strong enough to outweigh the last element for people to feel the change. If one of the 3 elements is weak, the change effort slows down or stops completely. So in the next few slides, I'll walk through how Mediplus is performing in each area and what that means for the organization moving forward. When it comes to the first element in Beer's model, dissatisfaction, Mediplus is in a tough spot. There isn't a strong sense of urgency inside the organization. The CEO's tendency to avoid conflict creates an environment where issues remain unresolved and linger, and that lowers the pressure to change. Cotter 2011 points out that without urgency, organizations struggle to build momentum. Employees feel the effects of that. They're frustrated because priorities aren't clear, decisions take too long, and accountability is inconsistent. Herald 2022 notes that when leaders avoid difficult conversations, dissatisfaction grows but doesn't translate into action. In Mediplus's case, dissatisfaction is low. People feel the frustration, but it hasn't turned into urgency or a coordinated movement. Problems are visible, but leadership isn't signaling that change is necessary, which keeps dissatisfaction from becoming a real driver. Beer 2023 emphasizes that dissatisfaction must be widely recognized for change to take hold. Mediplus hasn't reached that point yet, but until it does, the organization won't build the momentum it needs. When it comes to the model element, Mediplus doesn't have a shared model for where the organization is going. The leadership team isn't aligned, and that creates confusion across all departments. Communication varies depending on who you talk to, so employees aren't sure what the priorities are. Beer notes that when leaders hold different interpretations of the strategy, alignment breaks down quickly. For Mediplus, the model is basically missing. Executives are operating off different interpretations of the strategy, and employees end up making assumptions because they don't have one unified direction, because the and because the strategy isn't translated clearly, people are making different assumptions. Warwick 2023 emphasizes that clarity in direction is essential for reducing resistance and improving coordination. At Mediplus, teams are operating off their own interpretations because they don't have one unified direction from leadership. Until leadership establishes one clear model and communicates it consistently, the organization cannot align its efforts. Even with a clear model, Mediplus needs a structured process to execute it. At the moment, there isn't a process. Issues aren't consistently addressed because feedback loops aren't in place. Beer and Eisenstadt 2004 highlight that weak processes and missing feedback channels are common barriers that stall change. Right now, Mediplus's process strength is low. There's no structured plan, no shared ownership, and no consistent way to surface issues. That leaves teams relying on personal judgment instead of a unified process. This leads to inconsistent communication and slows down progress. Cotter 2011 points out that organizations need clear, repeatable processes to turn strategy into day-to-day action. Without that structure, accountability becomes difficult and execution becomes uneven. A strong process connects leadership decisions to actual execution. Mediplus needs that structure to move forward. When it comes to resistance at Mediplus, it's medium to high. It is growing because people don't fully understand the direction or they feel disconnected. There's hesitation around conflict, and that slows decision making. Harrell 2022 notes that employees often resist change when communication feels top-down or disconnected from their experience. Employees aren't openly fighting the change, but they're hesitant, slow to adopt, and unsure about the direction the organization is trying to go in. That quiet resistance is just as damaging as a loud outburst. Top-down communication increases pushback because employees feel things are being decided without their involvement. Warwick 2023 reinforces that resistance decreases when employees feel heard and included. At Mediplus, people are holding back because they don't see how the change benefits them or how their voice fits into the process. If leadership doesn't address resistance directly, progress will continue to stall. The first recommendation I advise is fixing the misalignment of leadership at the senior level. Different interpretations of the strategy are creating confusion across the organization. To address this, I recommend establishing a weekly leadership alignment routine focused on clarifying priorities, resolving conflicts, and create a clear message before it goes out to employees. Beer and Eisenstadt 2004 emphasize that honest, consistent conversations at the leadership level are essential for surfacing real issues and reducing hidden barriers. This routine gives us a predictable space to do exactly that. When leadership is aligned, the rest of the organization can finally move in the same direction. The next recommendation I advise is to help the decision-making process. Decision-making is slow and often avoided because roles aren't clear. Employees don't know who decides what, which increases frustration and resistance. To fix this, I recommend implementing a transparent decision-making system that clearly defines who recommends, who provides input, who decides, and who executes. Cotter 2012 notes that clarity and structure reduce hesitation and help organizations move faster during change. This framework removes doubt, speeds up decision-making, and reduces conflict avoidance by making responsibilities clear. It also gives employees confidence in how decisions are made and who is accountable for those decisions. The final recommendation I advise is to develop a stronger employee feedback loop. Monthly one-on-one talks with leaders and anonymous input surveys give employees a voice, and thus leadership shares those findings to help build trust and improve the organizational environment. Warwick 2023 notes that resistance decreases when employees feel involved in the change process. This feedback loop helps Mediplus identify issues early, reduce resistance, and create a culture where employees feel connected to the change in progress. In conclusion, Mediplus has the potential to move forward and continue to grow, but the organization needs clarity, urgency, and alignment to make that happen. Right now, the issues we're seeing are not about capability, but about the coordination, communication, and shared direction. When leadership aligns around one model, when decisions become clear and consistent, and when employees feel heard and involved, the organization gains the momentum it's been missing. The recommendations we've outlined today aren't complicated. They're practical steps that strengthen each part of the change model and give Mediplus a foundation to move forward with confidence. If we commit to these actions, we can reduce resistance, improve communication, and create the alignment needed for real progress. Thank you for your time, and I hope you have a great day.